Captain Lee Jun-ho stared out at the massive space station floating before them. Nexus Station was the heart of galactic government. Its silver towers stretched for kilometers in every direction. Lights blinked along its surface like stars. This was where the most powerful beings in the galaxy made decisions that affected billions of lives. The human ship New Seoul moved slowly toward the docking bay. Jun-ho had made this trip many times before. Usually it was boring diplomatic work. Today felt different. Something was wrong in the galaxy, and everyone knew it. "Captain, we are getting more signals," said Communications Officer Choi Hyunjin from her station. Her voice was tight with worry. "3 more colonies in the outer rim have gone silent in the last 6 hours. Jun-ho walked over to look at her screen. Red dots marked the dead zones. Each dot had been a living world just days ago. Now they sent no signals at all. No distress calls, no radio chatter, nothing. "How many does that make total?" he asked. 47 worlds in the past 3 months, Hyunjin replied. "The pattern is moving inward. If it continues, it will reach the core systems in 6 months." Ambassador Park Min-ji entered the bridge. She was a small woman, but her presence filled the room. She had spent 20 years dealing with alien governments. Nothing usually surprised her anymore. But today she looked worried. "The council meeting starts in 2 hours, she said. "Do we have the latest data ready?" Dr. Kim Tae-hyung looked up from his science station. "I have compiled everything we know. The disappearances are not random. Something is moving through space in a clear pattern. It hits worlds with large populations first, then smaller colonies. It is systematic." "What kind of something?" Min-ji asked. "Unknown. We have no survivors to tell us what happened, no debris fields, no signs of battle. The worlds just become empty. All life vanishes, but the buildings remain untouched." Jun-ho felt a chill run down his spine. He had seen war before. He had seen planets bombed until nothing lived. But this was different. This was thorough in a way that scared him. The New Seoul docked with Nexus Station an hour later. The docking bay was huge enough to hold 100 ships their size. Today it felt empty. Many council member ships were missing. Some species were avoiding the station entirely. Min-ji gathered her data files and headed for the council chambers. Jun-ho decided to go with her. He wanted to hear what the great galactic powers had to say about worlds dying. The council chamber was a massive dome filled with different environments. The Valorians needed crystal formations to think properly. The Netherii required gas clouds to maintain their forms. The Chronids sat on beds of heated stone. Each species had their perfect little world inside the greater chamber. Today, the chamber felt tense. The Valorian representative Veltar spoke in musical tones that the translators turned into words. The Netherii member floated as a shifting cloud of yellow gas. The ancient Chronid barely moved at all. The human delegation request to address the council about the outer rim situation, announced the chamber's artificial intelligence. Min-ji stepped forward. She activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy. Red zones marked the dead areas. The pattern was clear and terrifying. "Honored council members," she began. 47 inhabited worlds have gone silent in 3 months. Analysis shows this is not natural disaster or war. Something is systematically removing all life from these planets. We need to act now before it spreads further. The Valorian representative made sounds like wind chimes. The human concerns are noted. However, the affected regions lie outside established council jurisdiction. These are frontier territories that chose independence from civilized governance. "That does not matter," Min-ji replied. "Billions of sentient beings have died. More will die if we do nothing." The Netherii cloud shifted colors from yellow to orange. "The patterns you show are interesting from a scientific perspective. We should study this phenomenon carefully before taking any hasty action." "Study?" Min-ji's voice rose despite her diplomatic training. "While we study, entire civilizations are being wiped out." The ancient Chronid finally spoke. Its voice was like grinding stone. "In my species-long memory, such events are common. Populations rise and fall across the eons. This appears to be a natural correction in the galaxy's biological balance." Junho felt his hands clench into fists. Natural correction. These beings talked about genocide like it was weather patterns. With respect, Minji said, we are not talking about natural population changes. We are talking about total extinction of life on dozens of worlds. This requires immediate military response. Military response? Veltar's tones became sharp. The Council does not engage in warfare against unknown phenomena. Such actions could have unpredictable consequences. Dr. Kim Tae-hyung had joined them and stepped forward with permission. Our analysis suggests the destroyer is artificial in nature. Energy signatures indicate technology far beyond current galactic civilization levels. It may be an automated system from some ancient race. Fascinating, said the Netheri. An archaeological discovery of this magnitude requires careful scientific investigation. We must document every aspect before it completes its cycle. Completes its cycle? Junho finally spoke up. You mean before it kills everyone? Captain Lee, the Cronid's voice rumbled. Your species' emotional responses are understandable given your brief lifespans. However, such phenomena operate on scales beyond individual concern. What seems catastrophic to you may serve important purposes in the greater cosmic order. The chamber fell silent for a moment. Junho looked around at these beings who controlled the fate of the galaxy. The Valorians with their crystal cities had never known hunger. The Nethari floated in perfect comfort. The Cronids had lived for millions of years watching species come and go. None of them had ever watched their children die. What is the Council's decision? Minji asked quietly. Veltar spoke first. The Valorian Consortium votes for continued observation and data gathering. Direct intervention would violate numerous treaties regarding frontier territories. The Netheri Collective agrees, said the gas cloud. Scientific study takes priority over premature action. The Cronid Empire abstains, rumbled the stone being. Such brief events are beneath our concern. Minji stood there for a long moment. 3 months ago she would have been angry. Now she just felt tired. She had seen this before on smaller scales. When powerful people were comfortable, they found reasons not to help those who were suffering. The human delegation requests permission to organize humanitarian aid for refugees fleeing the affected zones, she said finally. Granted, said Veltar. Humanitarian aid falls within acceptable parameters. However, any military action remains strictly forbidden. As they left the council chamber, Junho walked beside Minji in silence. The corridors of Nexus Station buzzed with normal activity. Aliens from hundreds of species went about their business. None of them seemed concerned that civilizations were dying while their leaders watched and took notes. What do we do now? Junho asked when they reached their ship. Minji looked back at the massive station. We call Earth. We tell them the Council will do nothing. And then we decide if humanity is going to watch like everyone else, or if we are going to act. Back on the New Sol, Hyunjin reported 3 more worlds had gone silent while they were in the meeting. The red zones on the map grew larger. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, something ancient and hungry moved toward the heart of civilization, and the galaxy's leaders sat in their comfortable chambers, watching it happen. High above the crystal cities of Valoria Prime, Council member Veltar floated in his observation chamber. The room was made entirely of living crystal that hummed with soft music. Through quantum telescopes, he watched distant stars where worlds were going dark one by one. Fascinating pattern, he said to his assistant. The destruction moves in perfect spirals, very artistic in its own way. His assistant's crystalline form chimed softly. Should we send observers to study it more closely? Perhaps, Veltar replied, but not too close. We must maintain proper scientific distance. The last thing we need is to interfere with such a beautiful natural phenomenon. The telescopes showed refugee ships fleeing from the outer systems, tiny specks of metal carrying desperate survivors. Veltar watched them with the same interest he might show for interesting cloud formations. The refugee problem is becoming significant, his assistant noted. They are requesting sanctuary in our systems. Redirect them to the frontier stations, Veltar said. We cannot allow primitive refugees to disrupt our cities. They would not appreciate our crystalline architecture anyway. Far away on the gas giant Nethros, the collective member Nethari drifted through clouds of thinking gas. Here, consciousness existed as patterns of electricity and chemistry floating through the upper atmosphere. The Nethari had no solid bodies, no permanent forms. They were thought made manifest in vapor. The extinction pattern presents interesting, philosophical questions, Nethari said to the surrounding cloud mines. Are we witnessing natural selection on a galactic scale? An intriguing possibility, replied another voice from the gas. Perhaps this cleansing serves some greater evolutionary purpose we do not yet understand. The collective consciousness considered this. In their gas form, the Nethari had never known hunger or fear of death. Individual identity meant little when you could merge with others at will. The panic of solid beings facing extinction seemed primitive to them. The humans show such emotional distress, observed a third voice. Their attachment to individual biological forms limits their understanding of greater cosmic processes. Should we not study the survivors? Asked a younger consciousness. Their experiences might provide valuable data. The data will be more pure if we observe without interference, Nethari decided. Direct contact would contaminate the natural progression of events. Below in the gas giant's crushing depths, automated systems recorded every signal from the dying worlds. The Nethari treated it like a fascinating science experiment. On the ancient world of Chronodos, Elder Thane sat in his stone throne as he had for 3,000 years. His species lived so long that centuries passed like days to them. The current crisis was just another brief event in an endless timeline. Tell me again about this disturbance in the outer regions, he rumbled to his aide. Some biological life forms are experiencing population reduction, the aide reported. The humans seemed distressed about it. Thane considered this for several minutes. When you lived for millions of years, thinking took time. How long has this been occurring? 3 of their months, Elder. 3 months? Thane's stone features shifted slightly. That is barely a moment. Why do they rush to judgment so quickly? Their lifespans are very short, Elder. They see urgency, where we see normal fluctuation. I remember similar events in the distant past, Thane said slowly. Great cleansings that swept across the galaxy. They serve to clear space for new evolutionary developments. The humans lack perspective due to their brief existence. The aide waited respectfully for more wisdom. Elder Thane had seen entire species rise and fall. To him, the current extinctions were no more significant than weather patterns. Monitor the situation, Thane finally said. When it concludes in a few years, we can study the results. Perhaps something interesting will evolve in the empty spaces. Meanwhile, in the cold depths of space, Captain Lee Junho read reports on his ship's bridge. Every day brought news of more dead worlds. The pattern was becoming clearer and more terrifying. Captain, called Dr. Kim Tae-hyung from his science station, I have completed analysis of the energy signatures. The destruction is definitely artificial. What kind of artificial? Junho asked. Ancient technology. The power readings suggest machinery built by a civilization far more advanced than anything currently known. It appears to be automated. Communications officer Choi Hyun-jin looked up from her console. Sir, I am picking up transmissions from the council species. They are discussing the situation. Put it on speaker, Junho ordered. The translated voices filled the bridge. The Valorians called it an elegant solution to overpopulation. The Nethari described it as a natural evolutionary pressure. The Chronids dismissed it as a temporary adjustment period. They are talking about genocide like, it is weather, muttered engineer Yoon Ji-hoon. Junho felt sick listening to the casual discussion. These beings had the power to stop the killing. They had fleets and weapons and technology. Instead, they chose to watch and take notes. Captain, Hyun-jin said urgently, I am receiving distress calls from the colony world Taros 4. They are under attack right now. On the main screen, they watched sensor readings from a world 20 light-years away. The planet's energy signature was changing rapidly. Life signs were disappearing by the millions. How long? Junho asked. At current rate, the planet will be completely dead in 6 hours, Taehyung replied. Any council ships in that area? 3. Valorian science vessels, Hyunjin reported. They are maintaining safe distance and taking sensor readings. Junho watched the numbers drop. 8 billion people lived on Taros 4. In 6 hours they would all be dead. And the most powerful beings in the galaxy were treating it like a research project. Sir, said Yoon Ji-hoon quietly, we could reach Taros 4 in 4 hours at maximum speed. We have no weapons that could fight whatever is doing this, Taehyung pointed out. Our ship is designed for diplomacy, not combat. We could evacuate survivors, Junho said. Save who we can. That would violate council orders about non-interference, Hyunjin warned. Junho stared at the screen. The life signs continued dropping. Somewhere on that distant world, children were crying for parents who would never come home. Families were huddling together as death approached. And the council wanted humanity to watch it happen. Plot a course for Taros 4, he ordered. Sir, the council can file a complaint after we save some lives, Junho cut him off. Maximum speed. The new soul turned toward Taros 4, racing against time and death. Behind them, the council species continued their comfortable observations. They had telescopes to watch the killing. They had sensors to measure the destruction. They had computers to analyze the data. What they did not have was the will to stop it. In the depths of space, ancient machines continued their programmed task. They had been sleeping for millions of years until something woke them. Now they moved, from world to world, harvesting life as they had been designed to do long ago. The machines did not hate. They did not choose. They simply followed their ancient programming. In that way, they were not so different from the council species who watched and did nothing. Both were following their nature. The difference was that machines had no choice. The emergency meeting room in Earth Command buzzed with tension. Admiral Song Seong-ho sat at the head of the table, his weathered face showing every one of his 60 years. Around him, the leaders of humanity's military and government argued, in hushed voices. Ambassador Park Min-ji had returned from Nexus Station that morning. Her report lay open on the table like an accusation. The Galactic Council would do nothing. 47 worlds were dead and they called it natural selection. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, said Defense Minister Hwang Sun-mi. The most powerful civilizations in the galaxy are going to watch billions die because it might be scientifically interesting. That is exactly what they are doing, Min-ji replied. They have the ships. They have the weapons. They choose not to use them. Admiral Song looked at the star charts spread across the table. Red zones marked the dead areas. The pattern was clear. Now, whatever was killing worlds was moving steadily toward inhabited space. In 6 months it would reach systems with trillions of people. What do we know about this destroyer? He asked. Dr. Kim Tae-hyung activated a holographic display. Analysis suggests an ancient automated system, technology beyond anything we currently understand. It strips planets of all biological matter, but leaves everything else untouched. Can we stop it? Unknown? We would need to locate the central control system. That means tracking the machines to their source. Engineer Yoon Ji-hoon leaned forward. I have run the numbers. We can convert civilian ships for evacuation duty, cargo haulers, passenger liners, even mining vessels. If we work fast, we might save 10% of the threatened populations. 10%, Minister Huang repeated quietly. That means 90% die. It means 10% live, Admiral Song corrected. That is 10% more than the Council plans to save. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what they were discussing. Acting would mean breaking galactic law. It would risk humanity's place in the Council. It could start a war they could never win. Not acting meant watching genocide happen while they followed rules. There is another consideration, Min-ji said. Captain Lee Junho's ship reached Taros 4 during the attack. They managed to evacuate 30,000 people before the planet died completely. 30,000 out of 8 billion, someone muttered. 30,000 who are alive because one human ship ignored orders and acted, Admiral Song replied sharply. The Valorian science ships in that system watched it happen. They have detailed recordings of how 8 billion people died. The holographic display showed refugee camps scattered across human space. Ships arrived daily carrying survivors with terrible stories. Something came from the darkness between stars. It consumed everything alive and left empty worlds behind. The pattern is accelerating, Dr. Taehyung reported. What started as 1 world per week is now 3 worlds per day. Either the machines are multiplying or they are becoming more efficient. How long before they reach core systems? Admiral Song asked. At current rate, 4 months, maybe less. And the council response? They are planning a scientific conference to study the phenomenon, Minji said with disgust. Scheduled for next year. Admiral Song stood and walked to the large window overlooking Earth's blue oceans. Somewhere out in space, people were dying while politicians debated and scientists took notes. The same thing had happened throughout human history. The powerful watched while the powerless suffered. But sometimes, someone chose to act. How many ships can we mobilize? He asked. Every military vessel we have, replied Fleet Commander Park Young-ho. But that is maybe 200 ships, not enough to fight whatever is doing this. Not for fighting, Admiral Song said. For saving lives. Yoon Ji-hoon activated another display. I have identified 1,200 civilian vessels that could be converted for evacuation duty. The work would take 6 weeks if we start immediately. Cost? Everything. Our entire emergency budget. All civilian shipping would stop. The economy would suffer badly. And if we do nothing, the economy dies along with everyone else when the machines reach our space. The debate that followed was fierce but brief. Some argued for diplomatic solutions that everyone knew would fail. Others wanted to wait for more information that would come too late. A few suggested humanity should focus on defending only human worlds. It was Captain Lee Jun-ho who ended the argument. He had been invited to brief them on the Taros 4 rescue. His uniform was still dirty from loading refugees onto his ship. I saw children crying for dead parents, he said quietly. I saw families torn apart by something they could not understand or fight. The council species call this a natural process, but there was nothing natural about watching a 5-year-old girl ask why the sky was eating her home. He looked around the room at the leaders of humanity. Those people did not care what species we were. They just wanted someone to help them. 1 human ship saved 30,000 lives because we chose to act instead of watch. The cost, someone began. The cost of action is our comfort and our wealth, Jun-ho interrupted. The cost of inaction is our souls. I know what I can live with. The vote was unanimous. Admiral Song began issuing orders immediately. Every available ship would head for the threatened regions. Military vessels would provide escort and security. Civilian ships would carry refugees. Engineering teams would work around the clock, converting cargo holds into living space. We are going to break every rule the council ever made, Minister Huang warned. They could expel us from civilized space. Let them, Admiral Song replied. I would rather be outcasts who saved lives than council members who watched genocide. Getter. Taehyung approached with new data. Sir, I believe I have located the source of the machines. Deep space sensors show massive energy signatures beyond the galactic rim. Something very large and very old. Can we reach it? Yes, but it would be a one-way trip. The distance is enormous and we would need every bit of fuel just to get there. Admiral Song nodded slowly. Put together a plan. If we cannot save everyone, maybe we can stop the threat at its source. As the meeting broke up, people hurried to their tasks. Ship crews were recalled from leave. Factory workers began converting peaceful vessels into rescue ships. Across human space, an entire civilization mobilized to save strangers. Ambassador Minji stayed behind as others left. The council will never forgive this, she warned Admiral Song. I know, he replied, but the people we save will remember it. Captain Jun-ho prepared to return to his ship. The new soul was already loading supplies for another rescue mission. His crew worked with quiet determination, knowing they faced impossible odds. Sir? Communications Officer Choi Hyun-jin approached. I am receiving signals from other species. Some of the younger members of Council civilizations want to help. Can they act without their government's approval? Unknown. But some are trying. Junho smiled for the first time in days. Then maybe we are not alone in this after all. Deep in space, the ancient machines continued their harvest. They had been built by a dead civilization to serve a purpose no living being remembered, but they were about to encounter something their creators had not programmed them for. They were about to meet humanity when humanity refused to stand down. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Keras system. What they saw made even veteran soldiers stop and stare in horror. 3 planets hung in space like broken teeth. Once they had been green worlds full of life. Now they were brown and gray, stripped of everything that had ever lived. Captain Lee Junho stood on the bridge of the New Seoul, now flagship of the rescue fleet. Around him, 200 ships spread out in formation. Military escorts protected converted cargo vessels and passenger liners. Every ship was packed with supplies for the desperate evacuation ahead. Sensors show 17 refugee ships hiding in the asteroid belt, reported Communications Officer Choi Hyun-jin. They are running on emergency power and nearly out of life. Support. How many people? Junho asked. Approximately 40,000. Mixed species from the outer colonies. And the machines? Dr. Kim Tae-hyung checked his instruments. The Harvester fleet moved on 6 hours ago, but they left scout units behind. I count 12 automated ships patrolling the system. The scout machines were small compared to the main harvesters, but still larger than human battleships. They moved with perfect precision, scanning for any signs of life they might have missed. When they found the refugee ships, they would finish the job. All ships, this is Admiral Song, came the voice over the communication channel. We are going in. Escort vessels will engage the scouts. Transport ships will begin immediate evacuation of survivors. Time is critical. The battle began with surprising speed. Human ships darted between asteroids using their smaller size and maneuverability against the ancient machines. The scouts were powerful, but predictable. They followed programming that was millions of years old. Engineer Yoon Ji-hoon had spent weeks studying captured machine fragments. They react to life signs and energy signatures, he had explained to the fleet commanders. But they are not creative. They follow patterns. The human fleet did not follow patterns. They improvised, adapted, and took risks that no sane military computer would approve. It worked. Scout 7 is down, reported the destroyer Busan. But we took heavy damage. Weapons are offline. Withdraw for repairs, Junho ordered. Seoul will cover you. The New Seoul dove toward another scout machine, weapons blazing. The ancient ship returned fire with energy beams that could melt metal instantly. But the human ship was already moving, rolling and twisting in ways the machine could not predict. Behind the battle, transport ships worked frantically to rescue survivors. Captain Yang Misu of the converted cargo vessel Harmony loaded refugees, as fast as her crew could manage. The ship's holds had been fitted with life support and basic facilities, but there was barely room to breathe. How many more can we take? Asked her first officer. The manual says 3,000 maximum, Yang replied. We are already at 4,500 and still loading. The ship cannot handle that many people safely. It will have to. Those people die if we leave them. Similar scenes played out across the fleet. Ships designed for cargo carried families. Luxury liners packed refugees into ballrooms and swimming pools. Military vessels opened their hangar bays to fleeing civilians. Dr. Kim Tae-hyung monitored the scout machines during the battle. Their behavior puzzled him. Captain, I am seeing something strange. The machines are adapting their tactics. Adapting how? Junho asked while dodging another energy blast. They started with standard attack patterns. But now they are trying new approaches. Learning from our moves. That was troubling news. If the machines could learn and adapt, humanity's advantage in unpredictability would not last long. The evacuation took 12 hours. When it was finished, the human fleet had rescued 60,000 people from certain death. But they had lost 8 ships and over 200 crew members. The ancient machines were deadly opponents. Jump coordinates laid in, reported the navigator. Next stop is the Titan system. The Titan system had been under attack for 3 days. 7 worlds with 12 billion inhabitants were fighting a losing battle against harvester fleets. Local defense forces were brave but hopelessly outmatched. When the human fleet arrived, they found chaos. Refugee ships fled in all directions, while harvester machines methodically consumed planet after planet. The local military was trying to buy time for evacuations, but their weapons barely scratched the ancient ships. "This is Admiral Kraltok of the Hegemony Defense Force," came a transmission in rough galactic standard. "Human ships, you are ordered to withdraw. This system is under hegemony protection." Admiral Song responded personally. "Admiral Kraltok, we are here to assist with evacuations. Our ships can carry refugees to safety. We do not need alien assistance. The hegemony handles its own affairs." Junho watched the tactical display in frustration. Pride was killing people. The hegemony ships were dying heroically while civilians waited for rescue that would never come. "Captain," Hyunjin called out, "I am receiving direct signals from some hegemony ships. They are requesting assistance despite their admiral's orders." "Individual ship commanders?" "Yes, sir. They see what is happening to their people." The decision was easy. Junho opened a channel to the fleet. "All ships, begin rescue operations. Ignore any orders to withdraw. We save who we can." What followed was the largest rescue operation in galactic history. Human ships worked alongside rebel hegemony vessels to evacuate entire populations. They saved the young and old first, then worked through families and individuals. Engineer Yoon Ji-hoon performed miracles of improvisation. He rigged alien ships with human technology, creating hybrid vessels that could carry far more refugees than originally designed. Cargo holds became dormitories. Engine rooms housed families. Every available space was used. "The Valorians have entered the system," Dr. Taehyung reported during the 4th day of evacuations. 3 science ships maintaining safe distance. On the main screen, they could see the elegant crystal ships of the Valorian consortium. They hung in space like beautiful jewelry, recording the destruction with perfect scientific detachment. "Are they helping?" asked Yoon Ji-hoon. "They are taking detailed sensor readings of the harvesting process," Taehyung replied with disgust. "For research purposes. While people die, they consider this a valuable learning opportunity." The human fleet worked for 6 days straight. Crews collapsed from exhaustion but kept working. Ships pushed far beyond their design limits continued functioning through determination and prayer. When the last refugee ship finally escaped, they had saved 4 billion people. 4 billion out of 12 billion. Not perfect, but far better than the 0 the Council had planned to save. The cost was enormous. 16 human ships were destroyed. 500 crew members died. The surviving vessels were damaged almost beyond repair. Fuel and supplies were nearly exhausted. But in the ship holds and temporary shelters, 4 billion people breathed free air because humanity had chosen to act. "What is our next destination?" Captain Yang Misu asked over the fleet communication channel. Her ship Harmony was so overcrowded that people slept in shifts. Admiral Song's voice was tired but determined. "We have located the source of the harvester. Fleets. A massive station beyond the galactic rim. We are going to end this threat once and for all." "Sir," came another voice. "Our ships are barely functional. We have no weapons capable of fighting that kind of technology." "Then we will find a way to stop it without fighting," Song replied. "Dr. Taehyung believes the station has a critical weakness during its processing cycles. If we can hit it at the right moment, we might disable the entire network." Junho looked around his bridge at the exhausted crew. They had given everything they had to save strangers. Now they were being asked to give even more. "Captain," Hyunjin said quietly. "Signal coming in from the Valorian ships. They are requesting permission to accompany us." "What?" "Apparently some of their younger scientists have been watching our rescue operations. They want to help study the harvester station." "Study it or stop it?" "Both, sir. They think our approach might actually work." For the first time since the crisis began, Junho smiled. "Tell them they are welcome to join us." It is about time someone else decided to act instead of just watch. Deep in space, the ancient station waited. It had been sending out harvesters for 3 months, collecting biological matter as it had been programmed to do eons ago. Soon it would have enough material to complete its original purpose. But it had not counted on meeting a species that refused to follow the rules of civilized behavior. It was about to encounter humans who would rather die fighting than live watching others suffer. The final confrontation was approaching. The ancient station hung in the darkness beyond the galaxy's edge like a sleeping god. It was enormous beyond human comprehension. Entire fleets could dock in its smallest bays. Cities could fit inside its corridors. It had been built by a civilization that turned stars into tools and reshaped reality to their will. Now it was waking up. Captain Lee Junho studied the sensor readings from his damaged bridge. The new soul had survived 4 major battles and a dozen smaller engagements, but she was held together by determination and spare parts. Half her systems were offline. Her hull was patched with metal from a dozen different ships. "How big is that thing?" asked Engineer Yoon Ji-hoon, staring at the display. "Approximately 2,000 kilometers long," Dr. Kim Tae-hyung replied. "Mass readings are off the scale. It is larger than most moons." Around them, the remains of the human rescue fleet floated in formation. 60 ships out of the 200 they had started with. Each one was damaged, overcrowded with refugees, and running on empty fuel tanks. But they had made it this far. "Signal from Admiral Song," reported Communications Officer Choi Hyun-jin. "He wants all ship commanders to report to the flagship for final briefing." Junho left his bridge in the hands of his first officer and took a shuttle to the battleship Sejong. The Admiral's flagship was in better shape than most, but even she showed the scars of constant fighting. Burn marks crossed her hull. Temporary patches covered holes in her armor. The briefing room was crowded with tired captains and exhausted officers. Admiral Song looked older than his years, but his eyes still burned with determination. Around him stood the survivors of an impossible mission. "Ladies and gentlemen," Song began, "you have all done the impossible. In 6 weeks, we have saved over 8 billion lives from certain death. The galaxy will remember what we accomplished here." "Sir," interrupted Captain Yang Masu, "what is the situation with the station?" Dr. Tae-hyung activated a holographic display. "The station is in a processing cycle. It is converting the biological matter collected by the harvesters into some form of stored energy. During this process, its defensive systems are reduced by 90%. "How long do these cycles last?" asked another captain. 4 hours, but they only happen once every 6 months. We have exactly one chance to get this right." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. They had traveled beyond the edge of known space with damaged ships and exhausted crews for one 4-hour window of opportunity. "What about the Valorian ships that joined us?" Yang asked. 3 crystal ships with advanced sensors and scientific equipment," Song replied. "Their young scientists have been helpful, but their government officially disapproves of their presence here. So if we fail, they face the same punishment we do." "If we fail, punishment becomes irrelevant," Song said grimly. "The station will complete its processing cycle and send out 10 times as many harvesters as before. Every inhabited world in the galaxy will be consumed within a year." Engineer Yoon Ji-hoon stood up. "Sir, I have been analyzing the station's structure with our Valorian allies. We think we have found a way to disrupt the processing cycle permanently." "Explain." "The station requires enormous amounts of energy to convert biological matter into its stored form. If we can overload the conversion chambers during peak processing, the resulting explosion should destroy the entire facility." "How do we overload something that size?" "We ram it with our ships," Yoon said simply. "If we time it correctly and hit the right spot simultaneously, our antimatter reactors should provide enough destructive force." The room erupted in voices. Captains shouted questions and objections. Some called it suicide. Others called it their only option. Admiral Song raised his hand for silence. "How many ships would this require?" "Minimum 12, sir. Probably 15 to be certain." and they would need to hit specific targets within seconds of each other. Volunteer mission only, Song said firmly. No one will be ordered to make this sacrifice. Captain Lee Junho stood up. The new Seoul volunteers, sir. Junho, your ship is barely functional. Which makes her perfect for this mission, he interrupted. She cannot make it home anyway. Better she dies for a purpose. One by one, other captains volunteered. Ships that could not be repaired. Vessels, too damaged to carry refugees safely. Crews who had lost everything in the evacuation battles and wanted their deaths to mean something. In the end, 17 ships volunteered for the final assault. The processing cycle begins in 6 hours, Dr. Taehyung announced. Peak energy conversion will occur 2 hours after that. Admiral Song looked around the room at the faces of people who had given everything for strangers. I want you all to know that what you have done here goes beyond duty or honor. You have shown the galaxy what it means to be human. Ambassador Park Min-ji chose that moment to deliver her final report from Nexus Station. Her message had traveled for weeks to reach them in the deep darkness beyond civilization. The Galactic Council has voted to censure humanity for violation of non-interference laws, she said from the recorded transmission. We face expulsion from civilized space and possible military action against our colonies. They are threatening war because we saved lives? Captain Yang asked in disbelief. They say we have set a dangerous precedent, Minji continued, that other species might begin acting without council approval if they see humans succeed. God forbid other species should start saving people, muttered someone in the back. There is more, Minji's image said. I have also received unofficial messages from younger members of several council species. They call us heroes. Some are organizing protests against their government's inaction. The Valorian youth have declared you honorary crystal bearers. Even some Netheri are questioning their collective's decisions. Admiral Song smiled grimly. So we face punishment from the old and praise from the young. Typical. The final hours passed quickly. Ships made last repairs and loaded final supplies. Crews said goodbye to refugees they had rescued and would never see again. Some wrote letters to families back on Earth. Captain Junho walked through the new Seoul one last time. In the cargo bay, 300 refugees from different worlds worked, together preparing emergency supplies for the other ships. Former enemies and strangers had become a family, united by shared survival. A small child from one of the outer colonies ran up to him. She could not have been more than 6 years old. Her species had purple skin and 4 arms, but her smile was universal. Captain, she said in broken galactic standard, thank you for saving us. Junho knelt down to her level. You are welcome, little one. Take care of your family. Will you come visit us on our new home? He smiled sadly. I have to finish some work first. But maybe someday. The assault began exactly on schedule. 17 ships accelerated toward the massive station while the processing cycle reached its peak. Energy readings showed the ancient facility operating at maximum power, converting biological matter into some purpose unknown. All ships report. Ready? Hyunjin announced from her station. Target locks confirmed, added Yoon Ji-hoon. Hitting those conversion chambers simultaneously will require perfect timing. Then we better get it right, Junho replied. All ships, final approach. It has been an honor serving with you all. The station's remaining defenses opened fire, but the ancient weapons were designed for ship-to-ship combat, not stopping suicide attacks. The human ships pushed through the energy beams, armor melting and systems failing, but never wavering from their targets. 30 seconds to impact, Yoon announced. All ships still on target, Hyunjin confirmed. Dr. Taehyung, are you sure this will work? Junho asked. The scientist looked up from his instruments. The theory is sound, but we have never tried to destroy something this large before. First time for everything, Junho said. 10 seconds. 5, 3, 2, 1. 17 ships struck the processing station simultaneously. Their antimatter reactors detonated at precisely the right moments in exactly the right places. The explosions were small compared to the massive structure, but they hit when the station was most vulnerable. The chain reaction began slowly. Energy. Readings spiked as conversion chambers overloaded. Then the explosion spread, racing through the station's ancient corridors like wildfire. In minutes, a facility that had survived for millions of years was tearing itself apart. The last transmission from the New Soul was Captain Junho's voice. "Tell Earth we kept our promise. Humanity refused to stand down." The explosion was visible across half the galaxy. When it faded, nothing remained but expanding gas and twisted metal. The harvester fleets throughout space simply stopped moving as their controlling intelligence died. Billions of lives had been saved. The galaxy was safe. And 17 human ships had paid the ultimate price to make it possible. In the refugee ships fleeing toward civilized space, survivors from 100 worlds watched the distant flash and understood what it meant. Someone had cared enough to die for them. The council species would debate the implications for years, but in the darkness between stars, the truth was simple. When no one else would act, humanity refused to stand down. 1 year after the ancient station died in the darkness beyond the galaxy, Ambassador Park Minji stood once again before the Galactic Council. The chamber looked the same as always. Crystal formations hummed for the Valorians. Gas clouds swirled for the Netharii. Heated stone beds warmed the ancient Cronids, but something had changed in the air. The comfortable certainty was gone. "The human delegation will now face judgment for violations of galactic law," announced the chamber's artificial intelligence. Minji stepped forward carrying a data pad with the official charges. Unauthorized military action, violation of non-interference, protocols, disruption of natural galactic processes. The list went on for pages. "How does humanity respond to these charges?" asked Council Member Veltar, his crystalline voice ringing like wind chimes. "We accept full responsibility for our actions," Minji replied simply. "We broke your laws, we violated your protocols, we acted when you chose not to." "And you show no remorse for this lawlessness?" the Netheri representative asked, its gas form shifting to an angry red color. "We show no remorse for saving 8 billion lives," Minji said firmly. "If that makes us criminals in your eyes, so be it." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. In the observation galleries, younger members of various species watched intently. This was not the apologetic response the council had expected. Elder Thane of the Cronids spoke slowly. "Your species acted with typical emotional rashness. The natural processes you disrupted had purposes beyond your limited understanding." "What purpose justifies genocide?" Minji asked. "The harvesting appeared to serve evolutionary selection pressures." "The harvesting was an ancient weapons system, left behind by a dead civilization," Minji interrupted. "Our scientists proved this before we destroyed it. There was nothing natural about automated murder." This caused more stirring in the galleries. The council had insisted for months that the harvesters were a natural phenomenon. Now they were being contradicted with evidence they could not dispute. "Regardless of its origin," Veltar said quickly, "your actions were unauthorized and dangerous. You set a precedent that could lead to chaos if every species begins ignoring council authority." "You are right," Minji agreed. "We did set a precedent. We showed the galaxy what happens when someone chooses action over inaction. And look at the result." She activated a holographic display showing refugee settlements across human space, former enemies living together, different species cooperating to build new homes, children playing games that mix traditions from dozens of worlds. 8 billion people are alive because 17 human ships refuse to watch them die, she continued. Those people now live in our space, work in our colonies, and contribute to our civilization. We are stronger for their presence. "This is irrelevant," the Natari representative said. "The law was broken. Punishment must follow." "What punishment do you propose?" Minji asked. The 3 council members had clearly discussed this beforehand. Veltar spoke for them all. "Humanity will be expelled from the Galactic Council and banned from civilized space for a period of 50 years. All human colonies outside your original territory must be abandoned. Trade with council species is forbidden." The chamber fell silent. It was a harsh sentence, designed to make humanity an example for other species who might consider acting independently. We accept, Minji said calmly. This was not the response they had expected. Council members exchanged glances. Where were the pleas for mercy? The desperate bargaining? The promises of future compliance? You accept exile from civilized space? Elder Thane asked in surprise. We do. But I have some announcements to make before we leave. Minji activated another display. This one showed star charts marking the outer rim territories where the crisis had begun. The worlds we saved have requested to join a new alliance under human protection. They offer their resources, their knowledge, and their friendship to the species that refuse to abandon them. We have agreed. The display showed dozens of systems joining together. Worlds that had been considered uncivilized by the Council were now part of a growing federation. Furthermore, Minji continued, several Council species have young members who disagreed with their government's inaction. These individuals have requested asylum in human space. We have granted it. Angry voices erupted from the Council members. The Valorian crystals rang with discord. The Netheri cloud flashed through angry colors. Even the patient Cronids showed signs of disturbance. You cannot harbor our citizens, Veltar protested. They are no longer your citizens, Minji replied. They renounced their old allegiances to join people who share their values. Values like helping others instead of watching them die. This is intolerable, the Netheri representative declared. You are stealing our people. We are offering refuge to people who want to be part of something better than comfortable inaction. The chamber dissolved into chaos as Council members argued among themselves. In the galleries, younger beings cheered and older ones looked worried. The careful order of galactic politics was cracking. When order was finally restored, Elder Thane spoke with the authority of eons. Your punishment stands. Humanity is exiled from civilized space. Very well, Minji said. But understand this. You had the power to prevent a genocide and chose not to use it. We used what power we had and saved who we could. History will judge which choice was truly civilized. She turned to leave but paused at the chamber entrance. One more thing. Captain Lee Junho's ship carried a message recorder during the final battle. His last words were broadcast across the galaxy. Would you like to hear what he said? Without waiting for permission, she played the recording. Captain Junho's voice filled the chamber, calm and determined, even as his ship rushed toward certain death. This is for everyone who said we should just watch. For everyone who called this a natural process. For everyone who thought politics was more important than lives. We are human. When others will not act, we act. When others will not care, we care. That is who we are. The recording ended in silence. Even the ancient Cronids seemed moved by words spoken by a man rushing toward death to save strangers. Minji left the chamber without another word. Behind her, the council members began their debates about damage control and maintaining authority. But in the galleries, young beings from across the galaxy quietly made plans to join the humans who had shown them what real leadership looked like. 6 months later, Admiral Song Seongho stood on the bridge of his new flagship, watching construction. Platforms build the first stations of the Outer Rim Alliance. Former refugees worked alongside human engineers. Valorian youth brought their crystal technology. Young Nethari contributed their knowledge of energy manipulation. Even some Cronids, impatient with their elders' slowness, offered their ancient wisdom. Message coming in from Earth Command, reported his communications officer. They want a status update on the new alliance. Tell them we have 37 member species and growing, Song replied. Trade is booming. Technology sharing is advancing faster than anyone expected, and we have established rapid response fleets in case any other ancient threats wake up. And the Galactic Council? Still debating whether our actions were legal? While we build a better galaxy without them. Dr. Kim Tae-hyung, now head of Alliance Science Division, approached with reports. Admiral, we have discovered 3 more dormant harvester stations in deep space. Our mixed species teams are working to disable them safely. Any help from the Council? They sent a formal protest demanding we stop interfering with archaeological sites. The Valorian government is threatening sanctions against any of their Citizens who help us, Song laughed. And their young people? Are volunteering faster than we can process their applications. Apparently saving the galaxy makes us popular with anyone who has a conscience. In a small colony on the edge of Alliance, space, a little girl with purple skin and forearms played in a park with human children and young beings from a dozen different species. She was older now, but she still remembered the human captain who had saved her life. Her teacher, a former Netheri collective member who had chosen exile to join the Alliance, was telling the class about the Great Rescue, about humans who chose to act when others would not, about the 17 ships that died so billions could live. Remember this story, the teacher said. Remember that someone will always choose to watch when others suffer. But also remember that someone else will always choose to act. The question you must ask yourself is which kind of person you want to be. Far away in the crystal cities of Valoria Prime, old council member Veltar watched his world's youth leave in increasing numbers. They were joining the Alliance, drawn by ideals he could no longer understand. His perfect crystal chambers felt empty and cold. In the gas clouds of Nethros, the collective debated endlessly whether their young members had made the right choice. But the debates grew smaller each day, as more voices joined the exodus to Alliance space. On ancient Chronidos, Elder Thane sat in his stone throne and pondered the rapid changes. In his million-year memory, he had never seen anything like this. An entire galactic order overturned not by conquest but by inspiration. Perhaps, he thought slowly, the humans had been right after all. The final scene played out in the memorial park on Earth where 17 ships were honored.